Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
are we good?
Good, thank you. You?
I'm good, ma'am. Derek, I'm for Lloyds Banking Group.
Ross from Chartwell Noble in Worcestershire.
I'm Jenny from Wilson Brown Solicitors. Has your job become more or less stressful in the last 24 months? How and what is the impact?
The stress for me there is just, you want to be so consistent in what you do. The market changing every 10 minutes and this unpredictability that keeps coming into your system makes that incredibly challenging. And when you're so proud of the results that you deliver for customers, the stress comes in, this fear that you would let anybody down during that journey. And
we had a period of 3 years that was so busy that nobody could keep up. And whilst it didn't just drop, it's significantly different now. So that brings with it different stresses for me, certainly. Are we going to have enough work?
The consistency in the inconsistency has been the sort of theme, really, hasn't it? It's been relentless. It has been hugely challenging over the last 24 months to get the business, firstly, but secondly, to keep deals together.
If you could tell other industry professionals one thing about the value of your role to help them understand it better, what would it be? I wish people understood how difficult and technical conveyancing can be. It's complex. It really is quite tough. And I wish that people understood that, because it isn't just a process. It isn't just a tick box process.
A tick box, yeah.
Your lawyer is there to protect you and to protect your investment and the lender's investment. That's their job. They're trained to do it. And I feel like we've lost sight of that a little bit.
Probably mirrors that, to be fair, in terms of the complexity of our role, that actually it's not just pretty pictures and fingers crossed. There's a lot more to it. It's multi-layered. There's lots of different things that can ultimately go wrong. And an understanding that as agents, 56% of work that we do gets paid for, which means there's an awful lot that doesn't. Actually, there are plenty of people who've been interviewed in the world who come in and start being an estate agent and leave within 24 hours because they don't realise how intense it is, that it's hard work, yeah.
I'd love to share the deep passion we've got to get it right for customer, the challenge that we've got of trying to hold all the components together to make sure that you succeed with that, whether it be broker, conveyancer, customer, valuer. You've got a whole load of things in play there that you've got to make sure you get that right customer outcome. And we are deeply, deeply passionate about it. And we do great things, but we can always be better.
How have longer transaction times impacted you and your business?
Customer expectations are you should be getting faster, quicker, more transparent, yet we've got a very life-changing transaction here. It feels like the dated nature of the process is starting to really shine through a little bit.
As lawyers, we have a lot more to do now than we did 15 years ago in that transaction, and perhaps it's not understood really the amount of work that goes into getting a transaction through. So I think in terms of how it affects our business, keeping lawyers in that role is challenging because they don't want to be shouted at all day.
And there's been a lot of duplication we found in terms of what agents have to do and then solicitors have to do with the onboarding and the AML checks and what have you, property information questionnaires, the TA6, etc. So that duplication is really frustrating. And of course, everybody wants to point a finger and blame somebody. I don't think anybody really knows where that blame falls. For us as an industry, it's a problem. It's nearly halved our ability to invoice because of the length of timescale. Now, of course, organically that would build up over time, but with fall through rates and the longer things are on the market, the more challenging it is to keep them together. Okay, what or who do you think is to blame for the slowdown in property transaction times?
Oh,
With regards to blame, very often the solicitor is very much pointed at because the personality types of solicitor versus estate agent are fundamentally different, and the commercial pressures are fundamentally different, and it's very rare that estate agents understand why the process has to happen the same way.
unless you've been a conveyancer and worked in that, you will never understand the volume of phone calls and emails that are received. We sometimes just need to be left alone to get on with it. Obviously, you need updates. We get that, and it always amuses me a little bit that people think lawyers want to delay it because we don't get paid until the end. You know, we've got a business too, cash flow. We need to get paid too. So it is absolutely not in our interest to delay it.
I think we are poor at communicating in parts of the journey, and that's driving a lot of stress in there. Yet I'm pretty sure we've got mountains of data that could help simplify some of those journeys, where we still seem to just apply a pretty standard approach right across the piece.
Property professionals spend 20 to 44% of the working day chasing or being chased for updates. Why do you think that is?
I think we can sometimes speak a different language at points, and getting together and understanding probably each other's worlds a little bit better could only smooth that out. You know, for example, we as a lender, do we need to be clearer in our instruction? Do we need to really, are we too generic? Do we hide in areas of grey that starts to drive a whole load of other demand in as well? So we've got to start to open up those channels of communication.
If I were to think about it from the client journey, from a solicitor, where you've got your client, the other side solicitor, estate agents, other estate agents up and down the chain, there's a lot of people making phone calls to a solicitor. If they don't get through to a solicitor, who do they phone? Well, they phone the estate agent. And that, as the process continues, that tends to be the route. They tend to stop phoning the solicitor and start phoning the agent and say, can you phone the solicitor?
Do you think we all talk the same language? I could pick up a bit of conveyancer correspondence, and I feel like at times I need to bring a couple of people in to say, go and help me interpret this.
I think our barriers is volume, sheer volume of work now, and the chasing, and also having to look after your lender client and your client. Sometimes those interests, you know, can conflict a little bit. I think the barriers, again, a little bit for us with lenders. If we have an issue and we need to report it, we get very generalised responses sometimes. You know, it would be good to say, are you happy, are you not? Sometimes that can be challenging, and that does depend, vary from lender to lender.
The estate agent should be that linchpin that brings it all together, that can help translate it. It's broadly acknowledged that a lack of collaboration and siloed information between stakeholders causes delays. What kind of impact does that have on your role?
I sometimes feel like it's a little bit old in the way that we communicate. We've got to start to modernise that landscape as well, but it is the weakness that everybody almost holds in their own swim lane, when we'd be much better as a collective group working through this.
It's got to be industry-led rather than industry reactive. And I think the challenge that we have as an industry is that we can be very reactive to the client's demands, which I get because it's very important. They are the ultimate fee payer, they are the client. But at the same time, when it comes to communication, we are the experts at what we do.
Next up, what could everyone be doing to better improve things?
It ultimately all comes down to communication. Very few estate agents know of the conversation that takes place between solicitor and lender. And that fundamentally is a problem.
One of the bits that's always in my mind as well is, imagine if I could come to a solicitor, a conveyancer, and say, I've got all this information about the property, I only need you to do searches on A and B. And then it's getting a bit more personalised depending on the type of transaction. The amount of data that exists that could inform some of the decisions that you make, let's be clear, these are mountains of data. I've got to start to break away from habits in the old and start to really test and learn and understand and be a wee bit braver
I think we need to be a team. I think agents, lawyers, lenders, we need to be a united team. We work together. We're all on the same page.
As a collective, that's great in terms of the three of us, but the minute you bring a fourth person or an additional person in, you've got to get everybody to buy in. And there are a lot of old school solicitors that sit there and go, nope.
What is the role of technology in reducing transaction times? Would it help if more data was shared throughout the transaction process? It's inevitable, isn't it? There is so much there that can help all our worlds be more efficient, help transparency in the journey. I'm not an expert on the data side of it. I do believe, though, that we've all got to be on board. We've all got to be on that bus, because it's and try and make sure that we send it in the right direction.
I think everything's moved forward to such a degree now that those that haven't and those that are resistant are already being left behind. We're seeing certainly clients that are being represented by certainly agents and solicitors who are perhaps not up to speed and au fait with the modern technology that's available to them. The clients are suffering. I
am mindful that I don't think it's sufficient to have to go to lots of different places to obtain that data. So a collaborative approach is better with that. And so it's got to be streamlined for us as well, because, you know, there is the legal technical side of it, but there is also a process.
I think there's a lot of AI that can step in and do a lot of the tasks. And I think we need to be individually as sectors and probably collectively aware that probably in 5 years' time, it could look like a very different space. What are your top 3 business priorities for the next 12 months?
Consistency in service, regardless of what the market throws at us, number one. Got to be there, not be brilliant one day, poor the next. Want to really make sure that the levels of service we offer are as high as they possibly can be.
I think service is definitely up there. Efficiency, looking at efficiencies, because we're busy, we want to do it, you know, faster.
For us, it's about survival in a challenging market. Consistency, very much, is the order of the day for us. Dogged determination in that consistency.
If you could have a magic wand, how would you break down barriers to help reduce transaction times and improve efficiency? I'd love to give the right information up front. I'd love to give the customer a bit more certainty, a bit more confidence in the transaction. I'd love to get to the point that says, I know so much about that property and the transaction you're about to be involved in. Here, you can just have it.
Ultimately, for me, again, it just comes back to communication and education, and that everybody needs to have a better understanding of what everybody does, and they need to be better at communicating the challenges.
I think my magic wand would be that everybody work together. That's a lot to take on board, I know, but I think that is the start, actually, to everything else. We all go through the same things. We all go through the peaks and the troughs and the worries and the stresses and the strains of those things. You know, we work in that world. We know what it's like. We know the pressure, we know the strain, and we should be together in driving it forward, whatever it may look like.
And we do genuinely all contribute to some real life-changing moments.
Yes.
And ultimately, we're all motivated to act in the best interests of the same client. It's just making sure those interests are aligned and that, you know, our steps towards them are, you know, coordinated, really, aren't they?
There's a real appetite across the board. It's not just any one area of the whole property transaction. I think we're all struggling in different ways, and actually that there is a desire to change that.
It's solution-based thinking rather than pointing fingers and apportioning blame.
Definitely encouraging me to learn more and understand more, hearing firsthand some of the very similar challenges that we've got in the process, and everybody cares about the customer.